Now we're going to talk about something close to all of our hearts, and that's our home, right? And how we're going to repair and care and nurture and preserve that special place for us. From our Homes of History event that we do every August, we know there are over 400 century homes in Upper Arlington. And tonight we're talking about homes that are 50 years or older. Who lives in one of those? Yeah, me. Mm-hmm. There are a lot of those in UA. So Susan Keeny is with us tonight from Columbus Landmarks. Who's familiar with Columbus Landmarks organization? Okay, about half of you. She's going to tell us a little bit more about them. She is their preservation director. She's also a licensed architect and a certified expert in green building practices. So she's worked both residentially and commercially. And one aspect of her role is to guide homeowners on the care and maintenance of their older homes. And that's exactly why we're here tonight. She also helps instruct high school students at Fort Hayes. And when I was reciting this earlier in the day, I wanted to say Fort Myers. So I must have been thinking about sun. But it's Fort Hayes. And special of all, she lives herself in a fixer-upper. So she has practical knowledge personally as well. So let's welcome Susan to the podium. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We're pleased to present again for the UA Historical Society, and a special thank you to Kristen for inviting us, and thank you to the Historical Society for your support, advocacy, and support for historic properties. It's what helps make your community what it is today, a stable, attractive, and desirable place to live. On behalf of Columbus Landmarks, thank you for your excellent stewardship. I hope tonight that we can provide you with a little more information. Oh, cannot hear? Okay, sorry. I'm sorry. So I hope tonight that we can provide you with a little more information and resources to help you continue that excellent stewardship of probably your most important asset, which is your home. Here we go. So many of you might already know about Columbus Landmarks, but we are the preservation nonprofit, and we are in our 48th year. We'll be celebrating the Big 50 in a couple years, and we hope that you'll join us in that celebration. The photo here is of the old Columbus Union Station, designed by world-renowned architect Daniel Burnham. He was the planner for the Columbia Exposition in Chicago, and the design began in 1893, was opened in 1899, and placed on the National Register of Historic Places in 1974. And just 2 years later, it was torn down. A group of very young preservationists fought to save it, got a stop demolition order from a judge, but arrived at the site too late. All that was left was the arch, and it became the start of and rallying cry for preservation in Columbus. It's not widely known, but the photo on the top right shows that the arch has been actually moved twice. From its original location, it now sits in McPherson Commons in the Arena District, which actually was the eastern edge of the Ohio Penitentiary, which is also torn down. The arch represents our vision to preserve Columbus landmarks and neighborhoods through advocacy, education, and investment. And we promote design that inspires and endures. So those are pretty lofty goals. Many people don't know that our preservation organization is actually a dual mission organization. So we advocate for preserving our historic building inventory on the one hand, but we also celebrate excellent new design, and that's through our Ritchie Awards that we have every year. This year it'll be on September 25th. And speaking of the Ritchie Awards, in this photo, front and center, there is one of our founding members, Nancy Ritchie. She was the leader and the rallying cry for preservation here. So in this photo, she's volunteering at a workshop that we held in North Linden last fall. It represents well Columbus Landmarks' vision And the vision is we strive to preserve our landmarks and neighborhoods, and it's through 3 buckets, through equity, sustainability, and design excellence. So we worked for 1 day, 1 block, 5 homeowners, and loads of volunteers to blitz on improving some of these properties and with landscaping and general cleanup on the whole block, and we called it our Block Blitz. We partnered with Nationwide Children's Healthy Homes Program, Lowe's, and Oakland Nursery, who supplied us with all of the plant material. They were fabulous. So, why is it important to take a preservation approach to our homes and neighborhoods? So I took this photo. It's of an actual house project in an older neighborhood on the east side. Tackling a project like this can seem daunting, but the property owners obviously wanted to save these porch columns. And I might not recommend the exact method, but the approach is correct. Preservation is your guide. And the most reliable resource for how to let preservation be your guide is to follow the Secretary Interior's standards for the treatment of historic properties. Now, people get a little nervous when you talk about standards, but when we look at these, they do make sense. So, there are 4 standard approaches. There's preservation, which really is basically just saving the building. It's often called just stabilizing. And it's very important to do so until you really have a preservation plan. Then the next is rehabilitation, repairs and renovations that maintain the architectural integrity of the structure. And finding an adaptive reuse for a project is rehabilitation. Then there's restoration, which is bringing a building back to a certain time in history, like they do in Williamsburg, Virginia. And then finally, reconstruction, which is new construction to match the old. So, what's the best approach for a homeowner? The photo on the left features an example of a rehabilitation approach. It's probably the most likely choice of homeowners when deciding how to do improvements on your historic home. Now, a reconstruction is a little more involved, and this is recreating new features that replicate original features that are either missing or badly deteriorated. The beautiful wood columns in the center photo were hand-turned on a wood lathe to replicate the original columns that were missing. Then to the right is a photo of stabilization. And this was a project to support the gabled porch roof, while the deteriorated wood porch columns were removed and the new columns were installed. Now, you can change any historic structure. They are not preserved in amber. But with any approach, do keep in mind that changes and additions must be compatible with the house style and the context, which is your neighboring structures and houses. New details do not have to copy or replicate the old details. They just need to be compatible with and sympathetic to the historic structure. So, reconstruction. I wanted to include this because I thought this was interesting to show a couple examples of actual reconstruction here in Columbus. The photos at the left are of the historic Adelphi Savings and Loan on Long Street in the King Lincoln Bronzeville district. The new mixed-use development that was proposed for that site ended up demolishing the bank, but removed the original facade for potential reuse on the new building. Unfortunately, much of that facade deteriorated in storage and had to be recreated or reconstructed on the new building. So you can notice a few differences. The original is on top and the reconstruction is on the bottom, and it's pretty close. I think they did a really good job. The photos on the right are a really interesting reconstruction project. They reconstructed a commercial building facade on High Street in the University District. The early 1900s commercial building was supposed to be repurposed and incorporated into the new mixed-use development, but during demolition, the structure was determined not to be stable enough for future use. So, the developer had the entire brick facade manually deconstructed, stacked, numbered, stored, and then they recreated the existing brick facade on the new building. So, quite an undertaking. Rehabilitation is what most homeowners are familiar and experienced with. The goal is to try to repair or alter your home without drastically altering those features which give your home its historical, cultural, and architectural value. You live in your house today, not 100 years ago, and it must accommodate your use and meet your needs while still retaining its historic character and integrity. The exterior is what's most important. The question often asked is, would the original homeowners recognize their house today? These photos were taken from a few of our workshops on topics that are frequent concerns for homeowners. Can I repair my old wood windows, or should I replace them? How can I fix the brick on my house that has holes, gaps, or damaged brick? Are there contractors that can repair original wood siding? These resources, there are resources and available guidance on how to approach and accomplish these types of repairs. They're not necessarily hard and fast rules. They are more in the realm of basic guidelines. The following are several easy-to-remember guidelines that may help you with your projects. The first is pause before demo so that it gives you time to do your homework. Do a little research, both physical and at the library or on the internet. Physical, for example, walk through both inside and outside your property. Don't rip out your windows before you find out that they are original and can be repaired. Or, before investing in costly interior solutions for a wet basement, investigate where the water is coming from on the outside. Look at the way rainwater is handled off your house. You can research your house, the date that it's built, the previous owners, the architectural style. Often a detail or an addition that you might not find appealing may actually be original to the house. Maintain integrity, historically and architecturally. A missing bracket may be reproduced, but perhaps adding shutters where none existed before may not be appropriate. Or a modern new door that is compatible with a house style may be better than finding an antique door that may give the false impression that this is an original door. And then you want to save your historic materials. Use a light touch with the existing materials. For example, don't demo all your plaster walls in favor of new drywall. Plaster can be repaired. Or don't assume a damaged or wood door or window can't be repaired. Often, when a homeowner really wants to remove a detail or some original windows in favor of replacement doors, I suggest that instead of sending them to the landfill, if you're going to do replacement, keep them with the house as a record of its history. And we'll talk lots more about windows later. And then finally, don't be afraid to question, and that includes your contractor. Ask the contractor about a particular project they are using or a process that they might want to employ, just to make sure that it won't cause more damage to your property. For example, demolishing plaster versus drywall. So the word preservation, in preservation, rehabilitation can be defined as to repair a structure and make it usable again while preserving those portions or features of the structure that are historically and culturally significant. To elaborate further, the National Trust for Historic Places, one of the best resources for rehabbers, has 10 principles for rehabilitating the right way. Every project will have different needs and solutions, but these 10 basic principles go a bit further toward getting you pointed in the right direction with your project. I won't read all of them, but I want to highlight just a few. The first principle is pretty self-explanatory and pretty easy to accomplish if you're rehabbing your own home, because you're maintaining it for the use for its own use. Number 3 is a good one, I think. All buildings are product of their own times. Adding architectural elements salvaged from another building might not be appropriate. It's probably better to be honest and use a modern element that is compatible. And then I want to highlight number 6, and this is probably our mantra: repair first, replace last. And that should be behind every approach. And unfortunately, often demo is our default, but we really want to take a pause and try to repair first rather than demo. And then number 7, clean surfaces using gentlest methods. And basically, that involves a lot of elbow grease. That's usually the best place to start, rather than with strong chemicals and other measures. Number 10, the last one, new additions should be built to be removed. And behind this guideline is the idea that additions are products of their own time and should use current materials and methods. compatible but separate. An addition can be a contemporary design, but very fitting. And if it's removed, the integrity of the existing building should remain and not be damaged. So, getting to know your own building. And this is where we'll get into the specific architectural elements and treatments for them. For each of these areas, we can, and we've done entire workshops. So, you know, there's a lot of information to cover. But tonight, we will provide more of an overview that we hope gets you at least headed in the right direction. Roofs. Roofs are an important character-defining feature of a historic home that is also the first line of defense in protecting and preserving any home. They are key to a building's longevity. Our mantra in repair is top down, outside in. Most common early roof materials were wood or metal shingles. There was also clay tile and slate, of course, which is probably the most durable. If you are fortunate enough to have a slate roof, repair and keep it if at all possible. Quality of slate varies. It depends on where the slate was quarried, but the life expectancy of a slate roof is around 100 years if properly cared for. Slate roofs require the skills of a contractor who is experienced working with historic homes. And the photo on the left is a beautiful slate roof in Upper Arlington that is very well cared for. It's a strong visual element that should be maintained. On the right is another house in Upper Arlington that had a cedar shingled roof. I should say had, because it was actually so badly deteriorated that it was replaced with asphalt shingles. And that was not a bad decision. Asphalt shingles are a very good product and appropriate for historic homes. In fact, the City of Columbus has a list of replacement shingles that are approved for use on historic houses within historic districts, and those are online, or that's something that if you email our office, we're happy to share with, but it's a good place to start. And there are a number of products that are available. Gutters. Okay, so I was speaking with a roofing contractor experienced with historic roofs who said that recently he was spending more time working on box gutters than on roofing. Box gutter repairs are very costly, but once repaired correctly, will maintain the integrity of the house and last decades more. Box gutters are often incorporated into the cornice, so there's a seamless look that blends with the architecture of the home. And that is sort of like right over there. I mean, you can hardly tell it's a gutter. It just blends in with the cornice. Critical to box gutter repair is the lining. It can be copper, stainless steel, metal, or an old turn metal, or EPDM, which is a synthetic rubber membrane. Copper, of course, is the most expensive, EPDM the least. But box gutter repair is still costly, especially if the wood box also must be repaired. Now, there are other gutter types that can fit a variety of architectural styles. The box gutters are probably more suited to colonial or Greek revival or maybe Georgian. The half-round gutters that you see here are, here we go, right over there, work well with early 1900s bungalow or Victorian. The K gutters, which were a little bit later invention, are suited to 1940s colonial revival and mid-century modern. Both roofs and gutters are very important to monitor, particularly since incidents of heavy rains and storms will only be increasing. Make sure gutters are cleaned out regularly. Pay attention to the eaves and overhangs where ice can build up in the form of ice dams, blocking gutters and forcing water back under the shingles, causing damage to the wood structure and even entering interior spaces. So that's something that you can look at from time to time. Masonry is another area of concern for many residents. Beautiful brick and stone homes with intricate detail are a highlight of Upper Arlington, and they give your community its character and charm. But no material is absolutely maintenance-free, not even brick and stone. It's a good idea to walk around your house from time to time and notice any areas of damaged brick or deteriorated mortar. When it comes to masonry repairs, we cannot express enough how important it is to work with a masonry contractor skilled in working with historic buildings. historic masonry repairs require a skill set that's different from new construction. And that means understanding the mortar mixes that are compatible with old brick so that you don't get the problems that you see in the photos on the right. Old brick homes used a lime mortar, which is softer than today's mortar and with more cement content. Excuse me. The photos on the right show the effects of using a mortar that is too hard. Water vapor in the wall cannot exit through the mortar, so it works its way out through the softer brick, causing the brick to spall, as you see on the bottom there. You want the mortar to be sacrificed, not the brick. The other photo at the right shows the damaging effects of sandblasting. Never sandblast. The photos on the left show proper tuck pointing job on a masonry wall in Old Town East. The thin butter joints over there are especially beautiful, and they respect the width of the brick joints, and they don't overlap the brick. This is a particularly difficult tuck pointing job that requires much experience, and again, it shows the importance of working with a contractor experienced with historic masonry buildings. So on to painted brick. The photos on the left show a building in the German village that actually had 7 coats of paint. The paint was painstakingly removed, the mortar was fully extracted, and every joint had to be repointed. And this was done 32 years ago. And the photo that I took, the photo in the center there, was taken just a few months ago. So that shows you a good quality job really lasts. Again, sandblasting should never be used to remove paint from brick. To strip the paint layers in this German village house, chemicals were used along with a soft bristled brush and a light water wash. It took many steps. And the water wash, you have to use something that's lower pressure, less than 300 psi. You never want to use a heavy power wash on your brick because it could force water into the brick joints, causing further deterioration. Best to start with a garden hose. The photos on the right show a workshop that we had last year specifically on painted brick. The homeowner loved color and decided to paint her brick lavender. Now, thank goodness that she didn't get too far because she lives also in a local historic district and did not submit this for design review. And this is not intentional. She didn't mean to do this, she just didn't know. So she was cited for being in code violation, not for the color, but for the painted brick. She was told to remove the paint. So we really did this workshop to help the homeowner, but also just out of scientific curiosity to test out the different paint removal products and methods. And you can see from the lower right photo that we hardly touched the paint. And we used a pretty strong chemical remover, so, and a gentle water wash. The recommendation then is do not paint your brick. Once brick is painted, it is a maintenance issue, just like painting wood or trim. Painting can only mask over issues with the masonry, so it's best to start first with repairing the brick. Wood. Water deteriorates wood. Water's the enemy, maybe the main enemy. But there's also fungi, heat, abrasion, even ultraviolet light, which breaks down the bond between the components of wood, cellulose and the lignin that holds it together. When wood touches the ground, as in the photo to the left, the cut end of the wood column wicks up water, causing wood rot. The way to begin a repair is to examine the wood carefully and remove only the damaged areas. And here are 2 examples of how to treat damaged wood. Excuse me. The photo on the top left is commonly found where a wood column base sits directly on a porch deck. This repair involved cutting away the rotted portion at the base and employing what's called a Dutchman's repair, and the next slide will talk about that a little bit more. It may be possible to repair a small section using a 2-part epoxy resin or a body filler such as Bondo to fill in the gaps. With this process, only the column base had to be replaced, not the entire shaft. The example now on the right involved replacing only the damaged siding with new wood that matched the profile of the existing siding. It was primed and painted in the shop before installation. The replacement of siding boards were constructed using new wood. And the photo at the lower left shows the difference between new wood, which we purchased today, and what is called old growth wood. You can notice how tight the growth rings are in the top section in the old growth sample. This wood was harvested from forests where trees grew slowly. Wood from these forests is denser than new wood, and it's inherently rot and insect resistant. It's more durable than wood that is harvested today, which is why we recommend keeping and maintaining old siding and trim whenever possible. So this is the Dutchman repair. It's a little better illustration of that. Basically, it is an inset selectively replacing only the damaged area in a wood member with new material, usually matching the adjacent material as closely as possible. This requires a skilled worker. It's not really a DIY project. And this column is going to be painted, so it'll blend in with the old, and you won't see the difference when it gets done. Maintaining important architectural features. We previously mentioned the importance of maintaining these features that give your house its character, both historically and architecturally. And here are two fine examples of successful saves and reconstructions. The top left photo is in Upper Arlington. It shows an ornate Corinthian capitol that was decayed, and it had actual sections that had fallen out. Rather than throwing away the capitol, the homeowner called us and wanted to see if it could be repaired, and it could. A mold was created from the existing parts, a resin-type material was poured in, and a new capitol was created. You can see the successful repair in the photo below. It's on Guilford, and it's really beautiful. You wouldn't want to lose such a beautiful architectural detail like this. Now, the photos on the right show how replicating the original wood columns brings back character to the front elevation of this house. So how did the homeowner know what the original column looked like? This is where doing your investigating homework reaps the benefits. It's a little hard to see, but over here is one remaining, if I can get my pointer there, one remaining pilaster, and that's the profile that the homeowner used to replicate the columns. He literally made them from scratch in his basement. He turned the wood on a lathe, and it is a significant reconstruction project and an absolute labor of love. It adds so much character back to this house. Painting. So you've saved the important wood features on your house, and now they have to be protected. So we turn to paint. It's fun to start with color. Color inspires, as you can see from the examples found in our various Columbus neighborhoods. So many options and so many paint products from which to choose. Color inspires, and it can enhance or detract from your historic building. But color is really only a small part of a paint project. We must remember that paint is there primarily to protect the wood. It is one of the most beneficial things you can do for the wood elements on your house. To begin with, proper paint prep is key to a good paint job. You don't have to remove all the paint down to the bare wood. You can, but it's very labor intensive. We did this on our old window trim at our house, and it took forever, but that was our choice. To begin, you scrape the loose paint off until you reach the paint that cannot be removed. Scrape from the loose end to the sound paint. Now, you do the opposite for sanding and feathering the edges. It goes in the opposite direction from the existing paint to the scraped areas, because you don't want to see, in the end, after an expensive paint job, you don't want to see that kind of alligatoring in your paint. So paint failure can occur in any material, even on aluminum siding, and that's the center photo there, as you can see. It reminds us that nothing is maintenance-free. I wanted to highlight the photo on the left that shows the layers of paint on a historic porch cornice that were uncovered. There's a little bit of green paint there. It's one of the early colors. And when it was discovered, it was decided to use that for the trim paint on the colors, the new trim color scheme on this building. In your own house, you can sand down a small, inconspicuous area to investigate the paint color schemes from the past, kind of go down through the layers. It's interesting, and it can be a rewarding experience. Now, when new wood is used, make sure that it is back primed, primer on all sides. This will ensure a long-lasting paint job. Use primer and top coat from the same manufacturer's line. And use the best quality of paint that you can afford. High quality paint costs more, but those paints have more pigment, which makes for better coverage and durability. In the end, though, paint is just a protective layer that really is designed to wear out. And I hadn't thought about that before, but it makes a lot of sense. It must be renewed from time to time. So look around at all elevations, particularly the ones that receive the most weathering. Spot the signs of paint failure so that they can be addressed before the wood deteriorates. And a brief word about lead. Any old paint contains lead. Basically, anything built before 1978, and that's every historic house, has lead. If you do the painting yourself, wear protective clothing, respirator masks, and protect surrounding areas with plastic to collect paint chips, and this goes for the outside as well as inside. If you go with a professional paint contractor, they should know this, but again, don't be afraid to ask the contractor about how they would handle lead paint. Windows. Windows are the eyes of the house. They are important to the overall character of the house. As you can see from the photos of these beautiful Upper Arlington properties, historic windows add a special beauty to any historic home. Probably one of the most frequent calls that we get at Columbus Landmarks for assistance and resources involve old windows. They don't open. The glazing is cracked and missing. The glass is broken. And I will tell you, Columbus Landmarks is a huge advocate for saving historic windows. We understand that there are cases where window replacement is the best option, but the first approach should always be to try to save your original windows. Now, when I go to a resident's house on a site visit and they want to replace their old windows, I always ask them, have you considered repairing them? And they always give me this look of disappointment, which I can understand. But I explain to them that historic windows have value. We can do an entire program just on this, on historic windows. In fact, one of our most popular workshops is the wood window repair workshop. But for now, we'll try to highlight just a few of the important considerations when dealing with your historic windows. There are many reasons that we should repair first, replace last. Historic wood windows were built to be repaired, unlike replacement windows where you must replace the entire window unit. The common belief is that historic wood windows are not energy efficient. Now, insulating glass is a great product. It is fabulous, and it does what they say, what it's supposed to do. But the illustration on the right, the little sketch there, shows that most of your home's heat is horizontal through the roof. Most of your home's heat loss is horizontal through the roof. Only approximately 10% of heat is lost through the windows, and mainly it's the air infiltration that needs to be remedied. So, a historic window, once repaired properly with working locks and weather stripping, and when combined with a storm window, is as energy efficient as a high-quality replacement window, and it will last longer. One other thing to bring attention to involves climate change. Existing windows all have embodied energy, and that's all the energy it took to make that window back in the day. Carbon was already released at that time. You don't get it back, no matter how energy efficient a new window is. With the manufacturing, distribution, and installation of new replacement windows, carbon is released again into the atmosphere, and the cycle starts over and over. So, I'm going to use these photos, some of these, as talking points for the do's and don'ts with historic wood windows. And again, we're not saying that there isn't a case for replacement windows, but we just want you to consider maintaining your original ones. So repair first, replace last, always the best approach. Historic windows can be taken apart, and it's rare that repairing the entire window sash and frame is necessary. Usually it's just certain parts. But if replacement is needed, then there are lists of approved window manufacturers that the City of Columbus has for buildings in historic districts. It's similar to the roof shingles that they feature. There are many options from which to choose, but just make sure that the replacement window matches the existing window size, opening, and operation, whether the window's double hung or a casement that swings out or a fixed window, and maintain the same muntin pattern. Materials may vary, but I will say vinyl windows are never recommended. They are among the least costly window, but you will be replacing the replacement sooner than you would like to. So I want to go back, while we're talking about vinyl windows, to go back to this slide and to look at the window that's featured on the left and talk a little bit about that. This is a beautiful historic window from a farmhouse in Groveport. It's probably built around the 1830s, so it's very old. And the homeowner was friends of a noted vinyl window manufacturer in the area, a friend of hers, and she called him to ask, what would it cost to replace these windows? I'd like to do that. They're not energy efficient. And he came to her house, and he took a look at those, and he said, you don't want to replace those. He saw, even a vinyl window manufacturer saw the value of maintaining those historic wood windows. So I hope that they're still maintained, but I have a great respect for this company now because he understood the difference and why it was important to keep those windows. So move on here. Historic buildings and energy efficiency. A common thought is that old houses are inefficient and energy wasters when in reality historic homes have many inherent energy-saving features that are often overlooked. These buildings, you have to remember, were constructed at a time when there was no electricity, let alone air conditioning. Historic structures relied on building orientation, large windows to capture the daylight, which helps reduce electricity, which can cut down on utility bills. Wide porches, like you see in the center photograph, provided shade from the hot summer sun, protection in the winter, and allowed comfortable places to sit and gather. And operable windows, like the casement window on the right, let in fresh air and can reduce total reliance on air conditioning. Not saying that we don't need air conditioning, but it's nice to be able to open your windows. So to help homeowners accomplish some of these tasks that we talked about, there are some resources and available guidance that really anyone can access. One of those resources is the Home Preservation Program that was created in 2016. It was specifically dedicated to homeowners, helping homeowners renovate and preserve their older homes to maintain the architectural character of these homes. It's the program that brought me here tonight. Columbus Landmarks has always advocated for significant historic buildings, but we know that most of our building stock is composed of residential buildings, homes. So, in response, the Home Preservation Program was set in place to assist any old house homeowner with repairs, maintenance, and preservation tools. And one of the easiest tools that we offer is our site visits. They are free to any resident who owns a house that is 50 years and older, and that means 1970s, mid-century modern. And we do not sell products. We're not marketing our contractors. We want to be an unbiased resource. You can ask us anything, and if we don't have the answer, we will try to find another resource. What we want is for homeowners to do the right thing by their historic houses. And I really have visited with some lovely homeowners here in Upper Arlington, made some nice site visits. Following our site visits, Columbus Landmarks has curated lists of contractors who are skilled in a variety of historic building trades. We have built these lists and these connections through the years. The lists are reviewed and kept current to make sure the contractors are available and attentive to homeowners who need their skills and services. Because of this, we do not post the contractors list on our website. I'm sorry. The lists are an important resource for homeowners and are available following up on a site visit. And the site visits are important for various reasons. During these site visits, we can look at a project holistically and discuss not just one problem area, but also help to identify priorities, create a preservation or renovation plan, or write up a property assessment. Our conversations may start with one thing, like a roof problem, but they often lead to other issues. The goal is to match the appropriate resource sources with the concerns or issues the homeowner is experiencing. And there aren't many organizations that do that and offer this in our community. We host hands-on workshops each year on a variety of home improvement topics, including window restoration, masonry repair, roofing, and more. Our DIY workshops are a great way to learn about repairing and maintaining a historic home and preservation tips from experts in a variety of the building trades. It's also a wonderful way to connect with other like-minded individuals who also want to be good stewards of their historic properties, and they want to share their unique experiences. The photo on the right is a masonry workshop taught by one of our experienced masonry contractors at a historic building on the Fort Hays campus. The middle photo is a roofing workshop that took place in the facility of one of the roofing contractors who is an expert with slate roof repair. Both contractors are on our recommended contractors list. The photo on the left was actually part of 3 separate workshops that took place at the old Zettler Hardware building at the corner of Maid and Third downtown. It's a vacant building now, but the windows are actually all repaired. It was really interesting getting to work on the upper 2 floors of this historic commercial building and be taught by the contractor who actually had the contract to repair all these windows. I want to mention that even if you aren't a DIYer, these workshops provide information that can make you more knowledgeable when talking to a contractor. We don't expect you to be roofing contractors after this, but just having more knowledge makes you better able to talk intelligently with contractors. Another resource that you might or might not be aware of are preservation easements. They can be for homeowners or commercial property owners, and it's one of the best tools available to protect a historic property from demolition. I don't have a handout, but I can email anybody who wants a little information on preservation easements. It's really a voluntary, mutual agreement between a property owner and the easement holder, typically a qualified nonprofit like Columbus Landmarks, to maintain certain features of a property in perpetuity, or at least for a very long time. It's a deed restriction that runs with the property and is passed on to future owners. A nonprofit like Columbus Landmarks or Heritage Ohio holds the easement and inspects the property regularly to make sure the terms of the easement are upheld. One other tool or resource, the Upper Arlington Historic District is already listed on the National Register of Historic Places, and that was in, I think, 1985. There are some individual listings, but I thought I'd mention a little bit about the National Register questionnaire. It's another service that Columbus Landmarks offers to help property owners determine if their property is eligible for the National Register. The way this is accomplished is that through research that we do, and we enter it on a preliminary questionnaire form. The form is then sent to the State Historic Preservation Office, who decides on the property's eligibility for inclusion on the National Register. The staff at the State Historic Preservation Office is very experienced and helpful with this process. And this slide features a recent National Register questionnaire that was filled out. It's a property that is in the King Lincoln Bronzeville district. It's the Hayes Henderson House. The property was once part of a farm owned by Ohio's own President Rutherford B. Hayes, and later by Leonard Pearl Henderson, who was a prominent African-American lawyer and, at the time of his death, the oldest practicing African-American lawyer in Ohio. The Hayes Henderson House was determined to be eligible for the National Register. And what that means and why that's important, it is an honor, but for income-producing properties, as this probably will become, you are eligible for historic tax credits for that. So that takes, that really is a savings on construction costs. Unfortunately, in Ohio, we don't have tax credits that are offered for residential properties that are non-income producing, but we need to work on that a little bit more. So, there are helpful websites that offer much more information on caring for historic properties, and I printed out some of those there if you'd like to take them. I wanted to highlight the top 2, the preservation briefs from the National Park Service and the preservation tech notes are all online, and they are absolutely loaded with practical information on individual topics involving rehabbing older homes. So we want to be a partner with you to help you continue your excellent stewardship of your historic homes. If you have any questions at all, please do not hesitate to contact us. If we don't have the answers, as I said, we'll find someone who does. We look forward to seeing you, hopefully, at a future Columbus Landmarks event, at a site visit, or just walking around and enjoying your beautiful community. I would like to end with a statement that gives me some hope. I think we need hope these days. I believe we need to actively promote the preservation of our historic buildings. All neighborhoods are dotted with places that serve as physical reminders of the history we share and the diversity of our experiences. Our historic built environment tells us where we started, gives us our identity, and serves as a springboard toward a healthy, prosperous future. I thank you all for the privilege and opportunity to speak to you tonight. You can ask any questions you'd like.